Anyone hear me?
Let's get the show on the road.
Can you folks hear me now? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
All right. All right. I apologize. I had some kind of a phone screw up, and I redialed in, but I didn't redial in my PIN number, which completely screwed me up. I apologize for that. Hey, and I'm guessing nobody heard it from the beginning. Everybody's going to be muted. At least I expected to mute everybody on entry, but I don't know whether that's still going on. I do hear some guys talking. Use the chat function to try to chime in. We've got, well, now it's about 50 minutes. It should be done by 4 o'clock. I'm recording the webinar. I'll send the YouTube version out, so that everybody has that. Now, the session, the topic that I've got for today, as you see on your screen, is, it's no pain, no change. But I really want to focus on this SODAR strategy. The SODAR, and I want to introduce SODAR to you, S-A-D-A-R, SODAR. It's another one of the dozens of acronyms that we have. But the idea behind SODAR is for us to help build some case studies of the work that we have done for other contractors, for other fabricators. But I want to build some case studies so that we have a kind of a ready-to-go conversation and talk about real life stories that are applicable in a wide variety of different situations. So I want to walk you through SODAR, have you understand it, comprehend it, and hopefully find a way to apply it. And when we wrap up today, I'm going to send you out, of course, the kind of the lesson learned link, and I want you to think about some ways that you can apply SODAR. And then when we get back together, which is our kind of reconvening, is going to be on Friday, July the 21st at 11 a.m. So when we get back there, I'd like to find out and pick some brains, maybe ask for some volunteers who has had a chance in the last couple of weeks to put this SODAR principle into place. So that's what we're going to deal. We'll deal with this whole principle of SODAR. But before we dive into the actual piece of SODAR, I want to do we'll do a quick kind of a real quick drive-by review. The Sandler submarine's got the 7 different compartments in it, the 7 different several different stages that we go through. Bonding and rapport. What's the overall objective of the bonding and rapport? Somebody chat out, what's the objective of that particular step? What's the objective of that first stage in the sales call? The bonding and rapport. Shoot out a chat. Let me know what you see as the objective of that phase is. All right, good. Same side of the get on the same side of the table. Good. Getting to know someone, getting comfortable, making some kind of a connection. Very, very good. Yeah, I would say the primary objective of bonding and rapport is to create. Okay, good, Jeff. Yeah, build trust, build comfort, and build credibility. The idea behind bonding and rapport is to build trust, comfort, and credibility initially when we sit down. What we don't want to do with bonding and rapport, is when I say this, when I say to make friends, it's not meant to be, let's go out and see if we can, get a new golfing buddy, fishing buddy, hanging out, drinking buddy. The idea behind the bond and rapport with people, the French word rapport means to connect with, to get a connection, and it's primarily focused around business bonding and business rapport, not necessarily social bonding and social rapport. So I'm going to, and we talked about this in the past, the questions, hey, what have you done in the past? What are you currently doing right now with the business? And where you're looking to take your organization in the next 6 to 12 months. I really want to be focused, business oriented, to be able to build that trust, comfort, and credibility with a prospect right in the very beginning. Focus on them and their business, not on the fact that, they like hockey, they like golf, they like to fish, they like this, they like that. That's all well and good. But from a business standpoint, we want to focus on business first, the social aspects second, right? If they become a customer of yours and you feel like hanging out and doing stuff outside of the work environment, that's wonderful, that's great, that should be applauded. But with or without friendships, we can still do business with people. Good. How about upfront contracts? What's the objective there? What's the primary objective to the step of setting upfront contracts? What's the primary objective of the upfront contract phase? What's our objective there? Set the tone of the meeting. Good, Mike. I like that. Set the tone of the meeting. Good, good. Give me a couple more ideas, objectives. Set the guidelines. I like it, Jeff. Good. Yeah, set the guidelines. Laying out what each of you expect from the meeting. Nice, Justin. I like it. Laying out what each of you expect from the meeting. Yeah, it's setting the kind of the ground rules or the rules of engagement is a good way to look at that. Is the rules, setting the rules of engagement before the first pitch is thrown. What we want to do is make sure that we know what the kind of the ground rules are in this particular engagement. Certainly, we're going to be asking them a lot of questions. They're certainly going to be asking us a lot of questions. And for, any number of reasons, if it doesn't seem to make sense, I want them to be comfortable telling us that. And if we don't think we could help them to overcome some of their issues and some of their challenges, I want them to understand that we might have to tell them we don't necessarily see a fit. On the other hand, if it does make sense, we'll take the last 10, 15 minutes of the meeting and really start to map out how we're going to move this thing forward. So setting the upfront contract, the prime objective of that is to set the stage, set the guidelines, set the rules of engagement in moving forward. Perfect. I like it. Good, Ernie. Ask permission. Good. Asking permission to ask a lot of questions. Ask permission to ask a lot of questions. Good job. Now, how about the pain step? What's the primary objective of the step we call pain? What's the primary objective there? All right, why they're looking for a new supplier. Good, Mike. Yeah. What else? make them realize why they need you. Good, Justin. Yeah, and the thing is no pain, no sale. And just like my front page of today's session is no pain, no change. We want to find out, what needs to be fixed. Good. What issues they'd like to improve with their current suppliers. We need to find out, is there a gap between what they're currently doing and what they would like to be doing? And that gap is what we call pain. Pain is really, it's the gap between where someone is and where they want to be. The bigger the gap, the more the pain there is. And that has to be emotional. That has to be emotionally charged. And it also has to be, pain has to be, and done right, pain has to be quantifiable. It needs to be able to be monetized. We have to be better at getting pain laid out in quantifiable, monetizable numbers so that we can make a business case around solving their pain. Good. Yeah, and pain is one of the primary functions and factors, and we'll talk a little bit more about pain yet today. How about the budget step? What is the objective of the budget step? What's the objective of the budget step? What is the primary objective of the budget step? Quick chat. What do you think? Primary objective. Money. Good, Jeff. What about money? Yeah. And money is, Jeff Walker put down money is the primary objective. And it's to understand, do they have the three things? Yeah. Can you afford my fix? Exactly, Dale. I want to know, do they have the willingness and the ability to spend the money and the time and the willingness to change in order to solve their pain? Budget is the step where we determine from them how much money and time and energy are they willing to invest in order to get that pain relieved. So the budget step is not where we tell them what we're going to charge them to do this project. The budget step is to determine, do they have the willingness and the ability to make the necessary changes in order to make the pain go away. Very, very important. Very important that we check that out. We have to make sure that there's not some kind of a sticker shock or the shock that they're going to have to change their suppliers. How about the decision step? What's the objective of the decision step? If pain is to understand what's the emotional compelling reason for them to take some action, budget is their willingness and their ability to pull the trigger to do that. Decision step, all right, who's going to make the decision, and is there more than one? Good, Mike. Yeah, I want to find out the decision step is, what's the process that this organization goes through what's the process that they go through in order to make the decision to spend the resources to fix the pain? So what it is the decision step looks to the left, to the budget step, and to the pain step, and says, what's the decision that they would go through in order to invest the time, the money, and the resources to fix the problem that they have admitted that they have. And as Mike Powell said, who is going to be, the decision maker or makers, and he has in, is there more than one? There are, as a rule, more than one decision maker. There's all kinds of influencers who are going to influence a decision. So, and it's very imperative that we, as sales individuals, we understand that there are very, very complex decisions and decision makers, and we need to find out, we talked about this before, who the white knights are, who the black knights are, who are people that are not going to want to see a decision to be made. Those might be our black knights. We want to sniff them out and figure out under what circumstances might they comply to our offering. So it's very, very important that pain, budget, and decision steps are the three primary qualification steps or disqualification steps. So those are the objectives of those 3 steps, is to qualify and or disqualify an opportunity from, from holding a place in our pipeline if we don't stand a good enough chance to win it. How about the next one, number 6, the fulfillment step? What's the objective there? What's the objective of the fulfillment step? Also known as the presentation step. But what's the objective of that step? You've gone through planning, budget, and decision step. Now you're going into the fulfillment step. All right, good, Bob. Bob Stearns, present a solution. Perfect. Give them a solution. Good, Justin. Yeah, it's to prove that step. Right, Dale. It's to close. It's to say, based on my understanding of your problem, based on my understanding of your investment criteria, and based on my understanding of your decision process, this is what we at New Millennium would do, how we would do it, what it would cost, what it would look like. And this is laying it out for them and presenting a solution that rightly fits the needs of the prospect or of the customer. It fixes their pain within the budgetary constraints that they might be under, and it speaks to them on the decision criteria that they're looking at. The decision criteria is when the decision will be made, all of the who's get dealt with, and any of the showstoppers need to be addressed there. And then the fulfillment step is simply bundling it all together, and as Dale said, and to close for a decision. And the post-sell, the very last step, is called the post-sell step. What's the objective of that step, of the post-sell, and or known as the post-decision step? After we present, we've got a post-sell. What's the objective there? What's the objective of the post-sell step? All right, good, Mike. Setting up for future business. I love it. Yeah, it's making sure that both the customer and we know exactly how we're going to move forward. We'll work out the wrinkles and take steps for the next project. Awesome, Justin. Yeah, wrinkles are inevitable. There's always going to be some kind of landmines or some kind of showstoppers that could get in the way. Even the best laid plans can go awry. All right, good, Dale. Requalify. What are you going to do when your old supplier calls? So that's what we talk about vendor vengeance. When there is the vengeance of an old supplier going to come back, negate buyer's remorse. Good, Bob. Yeah, all kinds of strategies that need to be put in place to ensure that not if that stuff happens, but when that stuff happens, we've dealt with it. We've dealt with buyer's remorse. We've dealt with, with vendor vengeance. We deal with, kind of that post-purchase dissonance. We deal with, the black knights jumping in and trying to talk them out of it. So that whole idea, the post-sell, and then plus, and I think it was Dale that said, explain and talk about future opportunities in working, how we're going to service and support, and when future opportunities and projects arise, how we're going to handle those and how we're going to move forward with them. So good, very, very, very good responses and answers to the objectives of each one of those. Let's go to this next piece. We're going to really focus on pain for the rest of the session here. How are people motivated? What are the top 3? Let's see if you can shoot them out to me via chat. How are people primarily motivated? What are the 3 primary motivators in order of motivation? All right, Mike, you put money. All right, Dale, fear, financial fear. Good, Justin. All right, good. Emotion. The number one, what do you think? What's the number one motivator of people to take action? The number one. It is current pain. Current pain. Current pain. Yeah, John, that's it. Pain. Pain's the number one most frequent issue that motivates more people. Current pain. Current pain. And it's like, you know, if you put your hand on a hot stove, you don't sit there and think about whether or not you ought to move it. I mean, it's like instantaneous. You're motivated because currently you've got pain that you need to remove, like lickety split. That's the number one motivating reason why people take action, is a current pain that they're experiencing, and they will do anything and everything in their power to rectify it. That's number one, pain. Number two, what do you think number two is? If pain is the number one motivator, what do you think number two might be? Chat it out. Pain's number one. Somebody had put it. Good. Yeah, fear. That's it, Bob Stearns. Fear. Fear is number two. And fear is pain that has not occurred yet. So it's future pain. So current pain is number one. Number two is future pain, also known as fear. It has not occurred yet, but fear is, if I don't take some action, I could, in fact, have a painful situation that I've got to deal with. So fear, and I may have mentioned to it to you all before, but fear, the acronym for fear is, it's a future experience that appears real. F-E-A-R, fear, a future experience that appears real. So what you do is, you know, fear, and everything that we fear has not occurred yet, but in our mind's eye, we can see it unfold, and we take the necessary action to prevent it from ever occurring. So it's the future experience that appears real in our mind, and that future experience, we don't want to experience it, so we take the necessary action, and it motivates us. And I would say probably 8 out of 10 actions are caused by a fear, and somebody had put, financial fear. It's a huge motivator, because you think to yourself, if I don't take this action, it may cause me to go, in the wrong direction. I could lose money. I could lose, what I've saved. I could lose what I have. Fear of loss is huge, and the fear of loss in financial terms is tremendous. So we want to be focused on relieving their current pain, and number two, help them to understand what they could stand to lose if they make a decision to go with somebody other than New Millennium, because either one of those two are going to cause people to take some action. How about number three? What's the third strongest motivator? Third strongest motivator. John, you put value. Yeah, it might be a close cousin. What's if it's earning time? All right, peer pressure. Good, Justin. Money. What is going to cost me? All right, good. Bob Stearns just had it down there. Pleasure. Yeah, the third strongest motivator is gain or pleasure. Gain or pleasure. So pain, fear, and gain. In that order are the reasons why people take action. Current pain, number one. Future pain, number two. Current pleasure, number three, or current gain. And then number four would be future gain. You could move down the list, but those are the things that we, and the reason that I bring that up is, unfortunately, most sales interactions are based on gain versus pain. And what I want us to consider is, how do we use pain instead of gain? So we pull pain versus pushing gain. And if you think about it, some of these examples that I have here on the screen are pushing gain. And if I say to you, Danny Floyd, I say, Danny, let me tell you about this really cool feature of this particular product, or let me tell you why this is going to be so much better for you than you currently have. So I'm trying to push the pleasure principle on you, and the problem with that is when we try to push ourselves, our features, or our benefits on somebody, people tend to think, you know what, I can live without that. I'm getting along just fine. So instead of pushing gain, I want us to be better at pulling pain. Now, as I have on there, I think it's a fifth bullet point down, the problem is they're not as excited as you are about that feature and benefit, and you haven't found any pain. Most of the time, most salespeople go in there and say, here's why you should do business with us, and just start to do that, that dumping, that showing up and throwing up of all of their unique benefits, features, advantages that they might have. But that Sandler rule at the very bottom there, people buy for their reasons, not for ours. And if we think that we know why they should be buying from us, what we are is we're being too self-centered and self-focused, and instead start to find out what might in fact be some of the problems, some of the issues, some of the anxieties, some of the frustrations that you're running into that we should talk about. So in other words, as the steel doctors, as the structure doctors, you need to be more inquisitive about the problems they're running into instead of the solution and pushing a solution. I want to pull that pain, and the pain, talk about acronyms. The acronym for pain, or for that as an acronym, is what are the problems, the anxieties, the irritations, or the needs? PAIN. Problems, anxieties, irritations, or needs is how you should look at pain. And I would say, hey Danny, what are some of the problems that you guys are facing as it pertains to getting your supply of steel on site at the project, where you need it, when you need it, and how you need it? What tends to be some of your bigger problems or some of the bigger anxieties that you face running into that? What you're doing is you're asking assumptive questions. You're assuming there is no such thing as the perfect supplier, the perfect vendor source. And I want to know, what, if anything, would they like to improve upon? What kind of pain might they have that we should be exploring and understanding, so that we might be able to see whether or not we have anything that could help them out. And again, back to that rule, they buy for their reasons, not for ours. It's imperative, very imperative, that we understand what their reasons are, that they might be, looking, and not necessarily why we believe that they should. They might line up, but very likely they may not line up. So it's pull for pain, push for gain. Pull is that kind of that negative reversing. It's easier to get people when you're pulling that info out instead of pushing your features and benefits on them. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And I'm sure that as consumers, you would like to have the conversation with a representative who's asking you about what's got you thinking about this particular product or service, and then have you tell them about what kind of issues that you're not happy with, as opposed to them just saying, well, look, enough about you. Let me tell you about my feature, my benefit, my problem, or my product, me, I, us. That gets old real fast. And that's pushing gain versus pulling pain. Next one. Now, this next page this is the painometer, and I know that you've all seen it, but the painometer is how it's a visual representation of how to take a person, an organization, from the intellectual on the left side, from the intellectual to the emotional. People buy for emotional reasons. Everything under the sun is purchased emotionally. But you justify your decisions that you've made intellectually. So we always start intellectual. Most sales calls, if not all sales calls, start on an intellectual plane. It starts there. And we have to take them from intellectual to emotional. In order to do that, we need to be thorough, we need to be inquisitive, and we need to, say, in this step, follow this painometer from left to right. And I start with those pain indicators and or gain indicators, and I say, and if I say, and let's say I'm meeting with Tom Bixby, and I say, hey Tom, what seems to be some of the bigger challenges and some of the bigger frustrations that you guys run into as it relates to your steel and your steel supply? Hey Tom, I unmuted you by chance. So if I said, hey Tom, what are some of the bigger challenges you run into in your face? What might you say, for instance?
Well, my product always gets pushed out in the schedule if I don't get my answers back on time.
It might get pushed out?
Yeah, it gets pushed out. If I can't get the answers on time, it gets pushed out a couple months. Makes me late on deliveries.
Okay. Crazy question. Has that ever happened to you before?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Let me ask you this, Tom. Now I role play. I'm going to go into the second phase there, specific examples, and I say, Tom, can you give me a kind of a real life recent example of that having taken place? And so what I'm going to look for Tom to do is support his contention that getting his steel late sets him back, and I ask him for some specific real life examples of that having taken place. Because if Tom says, well, I can't think of that having happened, again, I don't want to fix a problem or intend to talk about a problem that he doesn't have any specific examples of it having happened in the past. I need to get him to, in this case, relive that. And so if I said, hey, Tom, could you give me some recent real-life examples of that having happened on a project?
Yeah, so recently we had a job where I couldn't get a couple of loads on a few of the joists, and they pushed the whole project out 2 months.
2 months. Okay, but at least you got the project done, right? Because it took 2 months.
No, we're still waiting. We're still waiting on delivery.
Still waiting on it. Okay. Let me ask you this, Tom. On your business, what kind of impact, what kind of financial impact might that have, or does that have on your business? Every day, every week, every month that project's not underway and or completed. How do you see this?
Well, it really affects the reputation of our business. So it's going to affect us when we go to sell other jobs to this customer in the future.
Okay. And now what I'm doing there is, you see, I'm in that third phase, which is the business impact. And this is where I need to quantify what it's costing Tom, in this case, what it's costing Tom in his mind, his business, in order to have those joists late. They can't complete the project. I want to know what kind of business impact that it's having annually or on a per project basis. And then the more Tom, let's say, relives this in his mind, the more emotional, because when I start talking about the financial impact of this problem, that he has specific examples of either having occurred or currently occurring, he starts to get more, let's say, he gets more pissed about it, more frustrated about it, because it's impacting the business. Now, I might say to Tom next, I say, hey, Tom, well, I see how it's impacting the business, but I'm not sure how that impacts you personally. And does it impact you personally? And he says, for instance,
well, this is one of our major. Go ahead.
I would say, how does that impact you, though? How does it impact Tom Bixby?
Well, I'm having to spend a lot of my time justifying the reasons for that we don't have this stuff on site, and having to do a lot of research and go back and try to figure out who dropped the ball on this project, so I can explain it to my customer.
Okay. And there again, I'm going to have Tom kind of relive and get kind of ticked off at this having happened. I didn't create the problem. With Tom. I'm just getting Tom to admit he has had this problem in the past or currently, and then finding out what's the impact, both financial and personal, a personal impact to him. Then I'm going to take him into the commitment step and find out how committed to getting this thing fixed is he. And if I would say, Tom, how long has this been going on? And like, you've lived with it for the last 4 or 5 projects. Why even consider fixing it now? I want to find out, is he as committed to getting this problem resolved as I am at New Millennium at resolving it for him? I need to test his level of commitment. And then the very last one is I'd say, hey, Tom, let me ask you this. In a perfect world, what would your ideal vision look like? What would the perfect supplier, the perfect source, knowing there is no such thing, what's your vision of the ideal supply company doing for you? And then have Tom create, what Tom can create there is both a vision and a solution that if I was able to go back and map out. So what I'm doing is I'm just using Tom's thinking out loud to be able to create the ultimate proposal, the ultimate solution for him. But in order to do this, I need to take him from the intellectual, what seems to be the biggest problems. Give me some examples. How does it impact the business? How does it impact you personally? How committed to getting this thing resolved? And then what's your ideal vision of the solution? And then kind of take people through it that way. It's the way to get it from the intellectual starting point to the emotional level where he's ready to pull the trigger and get things started or change his steel supply. Now, thanks, Tom. I appreciate your input on that one. Now let's talk about how do we utilize some of this stuff? Third-party pain stories. There's 2 terms for this: either the consensus principle or the principle of social proof. People like to know what other people's problems have been, and then they try to relate them to themselves. So we want to know, like, what kind of pains, why that has been a pain for them, and then how do they go about fixing them? People want to know, what did they go through? Why did they allow that to happen, and how do they rectify it? So third-party pain stories are going to answer those 3 questions. What took place? Why did they do that? And then how did it get resolved? I want us to start to build kind of a third-party testimonial on having solved other organizations, other contractors, other fabricators' pain stories. If we can be seen as the doctors of this, and that we can heal and make companies whole again, people would want to know that. And that's why the third-party pain stories are so imperative. We have to, number one, understand pain. It's the biggest motivating reason. And then understand fear, which is nobody wants to be stuck into that same situation. And so by hearing what other people had done, it allows them to realize, well, maybe I can get that same type of help as well. So dealing with third-party pain stories is the way to do that. And it's to build, again, it's to build our testimonial base. And the way to do that is going back to some of our existing customers that we solved the pains for, and doing this SODAR. And you've all been familiar with RECON, RECON, the RECON strategy. Remember, evaluate what kind of changes or challenges, opportunities, and next steps. SODAR is somewhat similar to it. And here's the SODAR breakdown. SODAR, SODAR. Anybody want to take a shot, take a stab at what the S would be? You're talking about testimonials, third-party stories, third-party pain stories. Good, John. Situation. Yeah, John Ingram. Situation. So the situation. How about O? What's O going to stand for? Okay, observation. Good, good. Yeah, it's opportunity. The situation, the opportunity. The D would be, what does D stand for? D would stand for decision. So the situation, the opportunity, the decision, the action, and the result. Situation, opportunity, decision, action, and result. SODAR. And so when you would go out and you would talk to your customers, or you may know for a fact, you may not necessarily have to talk to your customers, but you know for a fact what their pain was or what situation. Let's say if I went to, let's say I'm telling the Tom Bixby story, and I'm telling this to David Abernathy at a different company. And I'd say, David, if I said, hey, I've got a customer, and what he was running into is he was constantly having to delay his projects because his joists and his deck were never there when he needed it in his project. Was just never had the material on hand in order to complete the construction of the buildings that they were working on. So I'm telling them the situation, the other people's problems that I know were a fact. So I'm not making it up. I'm telling, that third-party story, the other person's pain. That's what I call the situation. This was the situation they had. Then when they found us, this is the opportunity. They saw an opportunity in working with New Millennium. When they found New Millennium and they realized here might be an opportunity to have our material on site, on the job site, ready to go when it's time for the joist to be hung and the deck to be laid. So I'm explaining that was the opportunity that Bixby, Bixby Engineering saw, and the opportunity is they could get away from this delay, this project delay, and when they saw that they could work with New Millennium, it was an opportunity that afforded itself. They made the decision to go ahead and from that point forward start to buy their joist and deck directly from us. So this was their pain. That's the situation. The opportunity was they found us, we found them, we got together. They made the decision to engage with New Millennium. They made that decision. Then the implementation, so then what we started to do is supply them. The action is what we did at New Millennium, the action that we took upon ourselves in order to get the product and service, the product to them and being able to service and support them. That's the action based on the decision that they made. And as a result, this is now how much more efficient and effective that Tom's company is now running. So as you see, it's a chronologic step by step. This is the situation they had. This was the pain. The opportunity to resolve their pain was through New Millennium. They made the decision from that point forward to start to secure their deck and their joists from New Millennium. They made that decision. We supplied them with the product on their next project, and as a result, they were able to get their project completed in far less time than they would have done, which meant, the money in their pocket a lot faster, more happiness, more money, more satisfied customers. And that's where SODAR, and the thing is about SODAR, it's like building a toolbox or a dossier of all of the problems that you have resolved. When you think about the problems you've resolved for New Millennium customers, every one of those things should be its own SODAR story. This was the situation. They saw the opportunity. We put together an opportunity to resolve that for them. They made the decision. We decided that, to work together on this project. We supplied them the action we took. We supplied them with their deck, their joist for this particular project. And as a result, this is how much faster and how much more profitable that particular project. And when people hear another person's kind of pain stories, it resonates a well of a lot better than us saying, we can do this for you, we can do this, this is what we have, we're so much better, so much brighter. All we're doing is we're taking it away from being about us to being about other people that are very, very similar to them, and then creating that true story. These are not made up stories. These are truthful stories that we can just kind of regurgitate to everybody and anybody. And if somebody just said to you, Bo, I know you're there, if they said, hey, Bo, why should I buy from you? I'd say, it's a great question. I don't know at this stage whether or not you should or you shouldn't. I can share with you some situations where some other folks have done work with us, and here's what they looked like. And then you could take them right through SODAR and say, here was the situation that these people faced on a pretty frequent basis. They saw an opportunity to work with New Millennium and get this thing resolved. They made the decision from that stage forward, and all the projects now, they made the decision to source their deck and joist from New Millennium. And, in that supply, the result of their projects have been, head and shoulders above everybody else. So what you're doing is you're taking the third-party story, and nobody can argue, by the way, nobody can argue with a third-party story, because they can't say, oh, that's not the problem that they had, or that was not an opportunity for them to resolve their pain, or that's not a decision they made. No, it's like, it's the gospel truth. You're telling real life true stories. And I know, I don't know if I'll have to check here if Jeff Peters is on board with us, but I know Jeff, let me see here. Jeff, yep. Jeff Peters. Jeff, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, you're self-muted. Hey, Jeff, unmute yourself. And this fall you've got the get-together, the entire corporate get-together. And you and I had talked, in the last couple of weeks about bringing in some customers in order to kind of pick their brains about working with New Millennium. And this would be the ideal way to do this, to have those to have those customers get in front of the whole crowd of DSMs and sales managers and say, this was the situation that we had ourselves into pre-New Millennium days. So before New Millennium came into our world, this was the situation that we were facing pretty frequently. So them telling them about the pains that they were having. And then they would talk about the opportunity now to start working with New Millennium. The opportunity presented itself. They found us or we found them. They made the smart decision to start sourcing out their deck and joists from New Millennium. What that looked like action-wise, how they implemented the products, and then as a result, here's how much better their business and their life is now that they've started to work with New Millennium. So SODAR is an ideal way to capture that and then to use this across the board. It's just a great way to build these customer testimonials. But it's got to be based on understanding people's rationale for taking action. And it's all about the pain that we look to reduce or eliminate. Jeff, I don't know, did you unmute yourself? Jeff Peters once, Jeff Peters twice. All right, Jeff's sound asleep. All right. Anyway, yeah, I'll talk to Jeff specifically about that for the fall get together. Hey, we're pushing it at 3:50. Looks like 3:58. I am going to wrap it on that. The next time, here's your homework. The next webinar is going to be that Friday, the 21st at 11 a.m. What I'd like you to do is to go out and try to, in the next, 2 weeks, maybe 11 days, go out and get some SODARs done. Find out and just create with the SODAR, create, 1 or 2 SODAR stories. And then I'm going to ask for some volunteers, somebody that has gone and had that SODAR conversation with a customer or can kind of create their own SODAR story and then share it with the rest of us, and just to hear it and for those of us to give maybe a little bit of feedback. But I think it would be very, very helpful in the next 10, 11 days to create 1, 2, 3 SODAR stories, so that we have them at our disposal if and when we need those. So that's what it's going to look like on the 21st. We'll rehash and revisit SODAR, and I really do want to get some of you, or get all of you, to do that, and then pick on a couple of you to share what kind of feedback they got, either from a customer or from their own self-generated SODAR examples. So that being said, I'm going to send you all, when we get off the phone, I'll send you all that, the lesson learned link, and along with a copy of the webinar that I captured, and send back your lesson learned form so we can capture those things. So have a great next couple of weeks, and we'll see you all again, or not see you, but talk to you all again on the 21st at 11 a.m. All right? Thanks, everybody. Good luck, good selling, and be safe out there. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. See you now.